Welcome back to MVM. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite board games of all time, and that is Marvel Champions. Yes, this game is a fairly new release. It only came out a couple years ago, but ever since it did, it immediately captured my attention and rose to the top of my favorite games list. This is a game that I just cannot get enough of. It is constantly being supported by Fantasy Flight Games with crazy new releases, including a ton of new heroes, new content, villains, scenarios, and each one of these sets just keeps on raising the bar and challenging what it means to be an expandable or living card game. I'm completely in love with this game, and as you can tell, I'm a huge Marvel fan. You just have to look around my set to figure that out. But I am joined today by another equally big Marvel Champions fan, and that is Brandt Sanderson from Step Into the Portal. This is a channel that does live plays of a bunch of different games.
Yeah, we do a lot of different live streams. It's a store in Connecticut, and we wanted to start to bring games to people when they couldn't come in during the pandemic. So we were live streaming games with a bunch of us from the store as it was shut down. But now it's kind of moved to my house, and I adore Champions. So for me, it's just a fun, relaxing way to stream and have people there with me, because I don't really like to play games solo. So having people with me while I live stream is my preferred way to play.
So yeah, if you're just meeting Brandt for the first time, he is obviously a big Marvel Champions player and somebody that I would say is very well respected in the Marvel Champions community. He definitely knows his stuff when it comes to Marvel Champions, and I think that makes him super qualified to come on today and join me as we talk about our 5 favorite Marvel Champions heroes. This is not necessarily the heroes that we think are the best or the strongest, but just our 5 personal favorites. Marvel Champions keeps releasing these hero packs, and they keep bringing in new mechanics to the game, changing some of the core ways the game is played, and they've all been really cool. We've had lots of different heroes released. Brandt, do you happen to know by any chance, off the top of your head, how many we've got so far?
I think when Valkyrie comes out in the US, it'll be 27, but I could be off by 1.
So yeah, that's a lot of heroes, and these heroes have come out. Some of them have been in the core set, some of them have been in the big box expansions that released it, but some of them are just individual blister packs that you can buy one hero at a time. So if you're new to Marvel Champions, maybe you got the core set for Christmas or birthday and you don't really know where to go and you feel overwhelmed by all the different options, consider this a good place to start. I don't think you'll go wrong with any of the choices on our list, but go ahead, listen to our top 5, and then tell us whether you agree and tell us whether you've played these heroes and enjoy them. I know I'm excited to hear Brandt's list here today. So Brandt, you want to start? You want to go first with this?
All right. My number 5 is Star-Lord. And he's just risk it all, or go for the gusto, if you will. I've done several speed runs people can check out on the channel where I try to go through the campaigns as fast as possible, and he is just the master of that. He can reduce the cost of any card by 3, but take an encounter card. What could possibly go wrong? So he really plays into that risky, off-the-cuff nature of the Peter Quill in the comics and in the MCU, obviously. Yeah, he's just awesome. He's got guns to go through for piercing and everything. And I just think he's literally an absolute blast to play. So my number 5 is Star-Lord, Peter Quill.
Yeah, I love Star-Lord too. I mean, he gets a ton of encounter cards. But have you tried playing him on Heroic, where Heroic mode adds even more extra encounter cards every turn?
I haven't, because he only triggers from the cards he has prior to those draws. So it doesn't work as well. But if you play villains like Green Goblin Mutagen formula that gives you extra encounter cards, or a lot of the villains from Rise of Red Skull, you'll get extra encounter cards there, and you can trigger his abilities, which is a lot of fun.
You know, personally, I really like to pair Star-Lord with the leadership aspect. That's one of the aspects in the game. Leadership focuses a lot on allies, so you can get a lot of allies out to fight alongside Peter Quill or Star-Lord. I think this helps really well because you're drawing all those extra encounter cards with Star-Lord, so having these allies out to help mitigate the damage caused by those encounter cards is fantastic.
Yeah, he does a great job in leadership because he makes every ally a guardian, which is amazing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that's just a cool ability that he has. So leadership works really well. And then for just fist flying, going fast, he's really good in aggression as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love Star-Lord. Spoiler alert, he's not on my list, but he came very close. But I'll go ahead and give out my number 5. My number 5 is Captain America. Of course, yes, I'm a big Captain America fan. I've got the shield right here behind me. And, you know, I tried to separate my love of particular heroes from my love of their Marvel Champions. But with Captain America, these things actually converge because I think he is a great character. He's especially great for a starter player because Captain America is good at everything. He's like one of those all-around heroes. He can do aggression really well and do a ton of damage. He can do protection really well, and just he has cards that let him stay alive. Like, you can make him nearly invincible, which makes sense for Captain America. He does well with Justice, where he can do the fighting and you can also try to stop the thwarting of this scheme. I mean, there's really nothing that can go wrong with Captain America. Plus, he's just fun to play. He's very thematic. He's throwing his shield around, using his shield to block and prevent a ton of damage. And that ability to like ricochet the shield around and hit multiple enemies at the same time is very cool and can get you out of a lot of really tight spots. So I don't want to say that he's like a beginner hero because he isn't. There's a ton of depth to him, but I think he's just like an all-around generally good, strong hero. And he works really well in solo mode. I play a lot of solo, like true solo as we call it, which is when you just play with one character on the board, not two-handed. And he does really well because he can survive, and he has abilities like I can do this all day, which lets him untap, so you can effectively use him twice in a round, and it gives you a lot of power that some of the other characters don't have, especially during that solo.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He's the classic all-arounder. He's so good. If people are watching this and they kind of have played a little bit of Champions or not much at all, like, this is the first hero to go to. This is just such a great hero for people to start with. Not that he's only a starter hero. But like you said, you could pick any aspect. He works well. He plays great in solo, if that's going to be what you're going to be doing. He's going to play great as a teammate as well. So he's just a really good spot. He was basically the first hero pack they made.
Yeah, he was the first, but yeah, I still keep building new Captain America decks. I keep going back to him. All right, so go ahead and hit us with your number 4.
Right. So my number 4 is my stand-in for kind of the OP heroes or the really, really strong heroes. So there's some heroes that definitely stand out above others. Now, one of the things I love about the game is that since it's co-op, I can really play any hero. If it was a competitive game, then suddenly if a hero was more powerful than others, I'd only ever want to play that one. But the hero that I think is super powerful, but I love playing him, is Venom. This is not Venom Eddie Brock. This is Venom Flash Thompson from the Guardians of the Galaxy comic books. So he comes in guns a-blazing. He can hold 3 weapons. Go figure that out. And he's got an amazing gun in the multi-gun, which is just a must-find. And he can play cards to ready himself, like Captain America. But not only does he ready himself, he also readies all his weapons, which is super powerful. And he comes with a bunch of cards that can play status effects, like Stun and Confuse. So he's just really fun. And then his best ability, hands down, is one of the best abilities in the game. On his hero side, he can take a damage to generate a wild resource. And that ability is so powerful and so fun, and you can trigger it on the villain's turn and on your own turn, which is just awesome. It makes you really feel like a superhero.
Yeah, you know, Venom is one of those heroes that kind of has a tableau, kind of like Iron Man or Black Widow. These are heroes that, like, they might take some time to get going. You have to kind of get through your deck and get out some of their better cards. But once you get them going, they are an unstoppable force. Venom, especially, once you get that Omni-Gun out, and definitely once you get his pistols out, which those are some of my favorite cards in the game, Venom's pistols. But once you get all that stuff out, he is just almost unstoppable. He can do so many cool things, and those guns actually help him both attack and thwart, which is crazy cool. Plus, he can carry multiple restricted guns. Normally, you can have a limit to how many of those you can play. So you can just have a ton of weapons out. And I like to pair him with Aggression personally, because Aggression just has access to so many more guns. You can just load him up with just literally just a ton of guns and just watch him go crazy with them.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I enjoy him in leadership, not to avoid, he's amazing in protection, actually. But I enjoy him in leadership. One of my favorite decks I made was called Team of Experts. And I put all the really high-cost allies in because he has that ability to gain an extra resource. He could pay for some of those higher-cost ones, and I kept them all in the game. That was really fun to have, like, him and his, team of experts, kind of in quotes, tongue-in-cheek.
All right, my number 4 is Spider-Woman, a.k.a. Jessica Drew. This is a weird hero because this was the first hero to allow us to use multiple aspects in deck building. So you actually get to choose 2 different aspects to bring into her kit, which is like she has the 15 cards that she starts with that also feature some aspect cards. So you can just kind of make a lot of different combos,
right?
Which is pretty cool. So you can choose your 2 favorite aspects and combine them. I like to use her with like protection and leadership, getting a bunch of allies out and then protecting them with the protection, keeping them alive and adding a ton of the cool protection upgrades that you can get to those heroes. So she is also really powerful because the more aspect cards you play, she actually increases her own abilities. She gets stronger, her defense gets higher the more of those different cards you can play. Plus, she has a lot of natural cards that are really good. She can do a lot of stunning and confusing. She even has a card that can both stun and confuse called Pheromones, which is really, really a great card and just one of the super powerful cards that she has access to. But because you can experiment with these different aspects, you could actually come up with some cool combos and combine some cards together that you can't do with any other hero.
Yeah, no, she's fun and powerful. That's what makes her so good. It would be tough for me to not talk about her and skip over Captain Marvel, her ally, who lets you draw a card every time you use her. She's so good, and she just adds to that exactly what Spider-Woman wants to do in drawing and getting more cards to play more aspect types. And you're not wrong on the deck building. Like, it's so fun to just be like, wow, suddenly the sky's the limit. Like, I can come up with powerful decks, I can come up with thematic decks, I can come up with creative decks. So you really get a lot of fun on that end.
Yeah, you know, actually, one of the favorite decks I ever built with her used Captain Marvel and Iron Man, the Iron Man ally. Those were like the only two allies in the whole game, and the deck was built around keeping them alive, putting a ton of upgrades onto Iron Man and turning him into a powerhouse, and keeping Captain Marvel alive long enough to just keep getting that card draw over and over again. You can effectively, actually, with protection, keep those allies alive throughout the entire game. It was a really cool deck.
Yeah, that's one of the best decks I've played. We call it Draw Your Life. And it's Captain Marvel, and you just keep her alive, and you just keep using her over and over and over again. Leadership protection. That's a great way to play.
All right, give us your number three.
Number three.
Number three.
So my number three is kind of similar to your Spider-Woman, but I think it's one of the best. She's one of the best heroes in the game, and really, really fun. And every time they release new cards, she potentially gets better. So she's one of those like future heroes, which is kind of actually how she is. And this is Miss Marvel.
Oh.
And Miss Marvel is all built around events, because she actually has a 1/1/1 stat line, which is extremely low, but she can exhaust her hero, or exhaust herself, in order to get a card back, an event card that she just played. So suddenly, every event in the game, you start thinking about as, what if I played that twice in a row? What would that be like? And that can be extremely powerful. And not only that, but she has cards in her kit. If you don't know, every hero comes with 15 signature cards that always go in your deck. So that's what I say when I'm saying the kit, the 15 cards that come with the hero. And she has cards that allow her to pump up the damage or pump up the threat removal on the various events she plays. And then she has a really cool thing where every time she wants to flip down basically every turn. And so she wants to flip, and then she has all these persona, like her family members and her best friends, and they all help her do stuff,
right.
Which is super thematic. And of course, she's going to be a Marvel show soon, and whatnot, or in the Marvel movie. I can't remember which. She's going to be in both a show and a movie.
Yeah. I think they said a show and a movie, the Marvels movie.
Right. Yeah. For a while, I think she was really underrated because one of the things that a lot of people don't like to do is flip to alter ego mode, and that's how she works really well. So it can be a little confusing learning how to like flip her down, control, get a whole bunch of card draws, set up your deck, flip back over, and then just that idea of using an event twice, like what events do I want, or building a deck that's very event heavy to be able to do that. But again, like I said, every time they release new cards, there's more events and more potential for her to just get better and better and better.
Yeah, you know, I like her too. I like pairing her with Justice because you can replay some of those really heavy thwart cards, and you're right. There's just new and better cards coming out all the time, and some of the more recent sets have given us some really great thwart cards. But I just like her because when you're playing in multiplayer, you can keep playing those thwart cards over and over again. She can basically counteract all of the villain's scheming, which, you know, when you're playing solo mode, that's not necessarily great because you still also need to fight the villain. But when you're playing in multiplayer, she can completely focus on that while letting all the other players work on cleaning up the different minions and attacking the villain and dealing with all the different, you know, encounter cards that come out. Meanwhile, you're just taking threat off turn after turn after turn, and every once in a while you're getting a few attacks in, like you mentioned. So I think she's great for that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of streaming that I do now is actually with two guys from Canada, Brian and Steve. Steve has a channel, Beat the Game, and we play a lot of 3-player because we want to show off that cooperation that's in this game that a lot of people don't get to see because they play a lot of 1- or 2-handed, and they don't see where 3-player really comes in. And you're absolutely right. Miss Marvel just shuts down the scheming and the threat of the villain, especially in those games with 2, 3, 4 players.
All right, so here we go for my number 3. Now, I don't want any pushback on this. I already know that this character's a little bit cheesy. He's a little bit powerful, maybe a little bit too powerful, but my number 3 is Doctor Strange.
There you go.
Yes, he is kind of considered an OP hero. He's got a spell deck of these invocation cards that can do some just crazy effects. You can draw a ton of cards. You can do a ton of damage. You can stun the enemy and basically keep them stunned turn after turn after turn. And there's so many different ways to mitigate that spell deck. You can cycle through that spell deck to find the cards you want. There's cards like Wong, and even his Stephen Strange alter ego ability is going to let you cycle through that deck, so you can cast these over and over again. Plus he has his cape that lets him untap, so you can cast some of these more than once. And there are cards in his deck which lets him cast the top spell without discarding it. So some of these spells you can just keep casting. The one that lets you draw 3 cards a turn, you can just do that. You could potentially do that multiple times. I've drawn up to 9 cards before just from having that spell up. And once you have 9 cards, you can basically do whatever you want. Play any card or multiple cards from your hand to do damage or thwarting, whatever. Doctor Strange is just very, very powerful. For a while, people were saying he was too powerful. He made some of the games too easy. And, you know, I mean, that might be true, but you're Doctor Strange, right? From a thematic perspective, you want to feel that powerful. You want to see how much damage you can do, and you want to do all these really, really cool spells. I mean, you want to feel like you're playing as the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, no, he's definitely considered the most powerful hero in the game. I guess he might be considered the most powerful hero in the universe anyway, multiverse, whatever it is. So it kind of goes along with that. But you're right. I mean, people starting out, it's just fun to win, right? Like sometimes it's just fun to win, so it's okay. And as more challenges come up, there's more for him to do, and sometimes it's just casual. I throw an MCU movie on in the background, and I fight a villain, and hey, it's not bad, but it was fun to get the win in. So I think there's still joy in playing.
So what you're saying is, when you're done losing, that's the one it's time to bring out Doctor Strange and get that win.
Most of the time, I've definitely found some challenges that even Doctor Strange struggles to overcome, so it can be there.
All right, give me your number 2. I am dying to know.
All right, my number 2 is from the core box.
Wow, we're going all the way back here.
Yep, so you can get this one right in the box. So if you're looking for a great hero, and you know, I think Captain America is a good place to go right off the bat. But if you just buy in the core box and you're like, am I going to get a bunch of crummy heroes? No, you are not. There are great heroes still in that box. But she was my original speedrun character, so I started doing all these with her. And I still love her to this day because the thing she does is the thing you want to do in every card game, which is draw cards. And that is Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel's ability is draw cards. On her alter ego side, she can actually let anybody draw a card, which is a really neat way when you're playing with more players. And on her other side, she can actually discard a card, heal a damage, and draw another card. So you can cycle through those cards you don't really want and keep her healed. She has a lot of health. She's really strong. And then she has cards that have triple resources in her deck, which is amazing. So one card that you can discard to play a card with a value of 3, or obviously use other cards to play even higher. So she allows you to get high cost cards out really fast, set up an engine with resources and card draw, and then you are just off to the races. She's so powerful. She's so much fun. I still have a blast playing her. Basically in all the aspects, she's really good. Protection is probably the one she's weakest in, but whatever. She's great in aggression. She's great in justice. She's amazing in leadership. She's probably one of the best to set up a team of allies to play around. So she's my original favorite, and now comes in at my number 2, Captain Marvel from the core.
Yeah, you know, she is actually really powerful. I built a Captain Marvel leadership deck that I used to get through the Galaxy's Most Wanted campaign, which is kind of infamous for being a very difficult campaign, but I was able to get through just because of the healing and card draw. Captain Marvel can just really keep going, and she's got some really powerful alter ego stuff as well. You mentioned the card draw and alter ego, plus if you get Alpha Flight Station out, that lets you draw another card, so she could be theoretically drawing 2 cards every time she switches back to alter ego, which is really good. And she just has some really powerful attacks too, so you can kind of just try to build up into those big attacks. But you're also not wrong about the core box. I want to mention that for a second because there are 2 characters in that core box, Iron Man and Spider-Man, both of whom were so close to making my list. They're super fun characters to play and very powerful. So if you're just sitting in front of you with the core box, don't think that you're missing out. There are some great heroes and a lot of great deck building potential just in that core box alone.
Oh, absolutely. absolutely. And Iron Man's gotten better. His whole thing is like tech, and they've added a whole bunch of tech in. So now you can actually get him built way faster than you could.
Iron Man definitely an honorable mention with all those new tech cards. But let's go ahead and follow into number 2 for me. Now, we already mentioned this hero, but my number 2 is Venom. If you couldn't tell from how I talked about Venom earlier, I love Venom. I think that he is one of the more fun characters to play. Plus, personally, this is the version of Venom that I really like, that Flash Thompson cosmic version of Venom where he goes off and becomes a space knight and fights with the Guardians of the Galaxy and does all that cosmic stuff. I think that's a really cool version of the character. So personally, I was actually more excited to see this Flash Thompson version. And I love Venom for all the reasons that we already mentioned. He's just fun and thematic to play with any aspect. He is great at protection, with Brandt mentioned earlier, but I like him again for aggression, just for that sheer, just blowing everything up mentality, just getting all those weapons and just triggering all those weapons at once. He's a very, very satisfying hero to play. Now, like I said, this is the version of Venom I love. I think people that like the Eddie Brock version aren't going to be waiting too long, because there is another version, I think, of Venom coming out soon.
Yeah, we talked about him before. I will note that he is coming out in the next box. He is a villain in the next box.
Yeah, in that new Sinister 6 box
Motives.
That's coming out.
Yep, he's in the box.
Okay, yeah, that box looks cool. I wasn't sure if they had spoiled who all was going to be in that box or not.
They did. Yep, he was in the article.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think a lot of Venom fans will be looking forward to that.
Are we on number 1?
Yeah, number 1.
All right, my number 1, like I said, Captain Marvel was there for a while, but then this hero came out. I love this hero in the MCU, my favorite one. He's so good. I have him over my shoulder right here. Ain't nothing like me except me, and that's Rocket Raccoon. He is just such a blast. I love the character. I love the blasting of minions. Every time he blasts a minion, he draws a card, so it kind of plays into that card drawing that I love, and the way he can play through. He's definitely not the most powerful hero in the game, but he's the one I have the most fun, because you can just draw and blast things away, and I think he does such a good job. He's great at controlling threat, even though he's a little soft, although they put additional health into his kit, which is amazing. They put additional damage, so you kind of get him built, and then he has a Tinker ability where he can scrap any tech, which has a whole bunch in his deck, and he can draw 2 cards for doing that. Plus, he has cards that are double resources in his deck. So that's his whole thing. A lot of people think it's the hero side, where you're trying to draw lots of cards and kill lots of minions. That's the icing on the cake for him. The real key is that other side where you can flip down, draw more cards, draw double resource cards, and be able to get him built up really fast, and then, use some of the people to protect him and whatnot. But the most fun I have when I'm really just in the mood is I play Rocket Raccoon in aggression versus Ultron and just own all the drones I can.
To be fair, I really need to give Rocket another chance, because, I'll be honest with you. The core deck that came with Rocket and Groot, they came together. I just didn't think their core deck was strong. Like, it really suffered. Yeah. I think that Rocket is a great hero, but playing with that core deck and just losing so badly kind of put me off. For sure. You really need to tinker with the deck a little bit. I think if that makes sense. If I'm being fair, I think you really need to build a deck for him to really shine.
Yeah, no, his deck out of the box is rough. He also came in the hardest box. So you've got Rocket and Groot, which are kind of the slowest to build characters, and they're in a campaign that wants you to fight fast. So that's what's tricky. But if you take them back to some of the other campaigns and other villains, you'll have a total blast. If you take Rocket, you're playing solo, and put him in Justice, he's amazing. He's really, really good. He can be really fun in leadership, putting all these items out on the other allies, which is really good. And aggression, he can just blast away. You get into a 3 or 4 player game and just let him blast and draw cards. He's unbelievable. You put the card Hall of Heroes in his deck, which lets you get a counter every time you kill a minion, and then when you flip down, if you have 3 counters, you can draw 3 cards. He will amass. I've amassed something like 26 counters on Hall of Heroes with him or something. And you could just draw so many cards. So, yeah, no, definitely his starter deck is one of the worst ones.
Yeah. He's kind of like Venom with that, like what we talked about, where like he just gets better the more cards you put out, and he has a ton of like upgrades and stuff that just stays out on the battlefield. And again, he has access to all of those guns, all of those really cool guns. And even since he released, there's more really cool guns and weapons and items that have come out. since, and I think they're just going to keep releasing better and cooler weapons.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the other side, the non-blasting side, he's got the thruster boots, so he's one of 2 heroes, Wasp being the other one, that can get to 3 threat just by naturally thwarting. So that's amazing. And then he has a card called I've Got a Plan, which is him holding the guy's leg, and he can ready after he thwarts and get +1. So with that thruster boot on there for a cost of 1, he can thwart 7 threat off, meanwhile blasting with all of his guns without having to attack himself. It's so fun. He's so much fun once you really get him down.
All right. Well, so my number 1. So here we go. My number 1 is a relatively new hero, but he immediately captured my imagination. It's not a hero that I love from the comics, but it's one that I'm growing to love a lot in the game, and that is Adam Warlock. This character is super different and very cool. He can use cards from every aspect in the game, but no more than 1 of each card, and he has to have an equal amount of cards from each different aspect. So he's kind of a tougher character to deck build with, but being able to draw from that pool is very, very cool. You can make some really, really cool decks with some combos between all of these different cards. I talked about this with Jessica Drew earlier. Jessica Drew is still great because she can have multiples of some of those better cards. Adam Warlock just gets 1. However, he has a lot of cards that are going to let him search through his discard pile to draw cards back, because you're going to be cycling through your discard pile a lot with him. And he has a really cool ability called Battle Mage, which lets you play aspect cards to trigger different things like doing damage, taking threat off, powering up your allies and things like that. And you can even power that up to let you draw cards every time you use it. So you're just constantly drawing cards with him. You're constantly searching for the right card to use at the right moment. And you're getting to trigger all of these really cool combos that really make him a threat to be reckoned with in really any different situation. He's very flexible, and you can kind of build his deck, however you like, but and you're not wanting to just pull the best cards of every aspect, because that's not going to win it for you. You really have to build kind of with a theme, and you have to find those synergies between all the cards. But if you do it right, Adam Warlock becomes very difficult to kill. He can have cards like Shield Spell out, which is going to prevent all damage dealt to him, and he has that Soul World where it's going to be adding counters over the course of the game. If he's in alter ego form, he can remove a counter and just heal all the way back up to full health. You could go from 1 to 11, which makes him very difficult to kill.
Yeah. No, Adam Warlock's really neat, and if people are watching this and they've played Magic Commander, he's the Commander style deck, where you can just kind of throw everything in. You've got everything from the game at your disposal. And then I had to learn the term because I played some Magic, but not enough. And I played especially in the 90s. I haven't played as much lately, but he can tutor. He can go search through the discard pile to find all those things. So he's really neat. He does, in my mind, he does take a while to get all those cards out and built. That's where he can be a little bit stressful, is trying to get all the stuff on the table. But no doubt, once he has that stuff on the table, he can stand toe-to-toe with many of the villains, for sure. He's really good. And again, like Spider-Woman, you can get those fun combo decks going, lots of different styles, or just fun thematic decks that a lot of people like to play too.
Yeah, you're definitely right. He can be a little bit harder to set up, which is why you have to use those tutor cards, because the cards that actually cycle through his deck that cause you to discard cards from the top of your deck are actually super valuable for this, because if you have that search card in your hand, the one that lets you fetch for a particular card, you could just keep playing these over and over again, playing those and discarding a bunch of cards until your discard pile is pretty big. You can get to a point where you have all but like 2 or 3 cards in your discard pile. You can search through that entire discard pile and find specifically those setup cards that you need to kind of get him built out. So you can build him a little quicker because you can search for those cards specifically. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I wouldn't say the easiest hero, definitely one of the more advanced heroes. He came in the most recent box, which is the Thanos box with Spectrum, who's another, I would say, a little bit more complicated of a hero, but that whole box is a lot of fun.
For sure. Nice, good pick.
Yeah, so what was that? We only had, all of our lists, we only had 1 crossover?
Venom.
Yeah, I guess that makes Venom the hero of the day.
Makes sense, he's good.
Yeah, I mean, so that's not bad. I honestly thought that we were going to have a little bit more crossover. So that is a 9. We talked about 9 different heroes today, which is really cool. So again, like I said earlier in the video, if you're just looking for some new heroes to grab, I think any one of these 9 heroes are going to be perfect choices. You'll have a blast. You've heard us talk about them. Maybe some of these have appealed to you in certain ways, but all of these heroes are available. Some of them are individual packs. Some of them are coming out in those box sets. Yeah.
Yep. Adam Warlock and Spectrum are in the Thanos one. and Rocket and Groot are in Galaxy's Most Wanted. I'm going backwards, and Spider-Woman and Hawkeye are.
Yeah, those are all great heroes. So those are like the B tier. We could probably do a whole nother video of like the next 5 heroes, because man, all of those heroes you mentioned are really great as well. But maybe that'll be something that comes in the future. Plus, those boxes are really great. They have really great campaign modes with some great villains as well. So that's definitely money well spent. So Brandt, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here today.
No problem. Anytime. It was a blast.
Yeah, and can you let everybody know where they can find your Marvel Champions live streams? Are these something that you pre-schedule, or you just kind of jump on live as you kind of feel like playing?
Yeah, I pre-schedule them on the channel, but they're not preset on a certain date and whatnot. But yeah, the channel is Step Into the Portal. You can check it out for Marvel Champions playthroughs and tons of other games and things as well, if you're interested in board game playthroughs and other things like that, unboxings, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely check out that channel. This probably is not the last you'll see of Brandt here on our channel, as well as we continue to talk about Marvel Champions, my favorite game, well into the future. But thank you all so much for joining us here today. As we talked about Marvel Champions, hopefully you're looking forward to more content. But until then, I'd like to say thank you for liking, subscribing, following us at MVM, and just, yeah, continue to watch our content. We love having you guys, and keep having fun at the table.
Bye.
Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.